Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. In the age before color, before dusk first folded itself across the horizon, the world was born in endless brightness. It was not warm, nor gentle, nor kind. It was simply light, blinding, boundless, eternal. The young world, newborn and trembling, glowed like a pearl suspended in an ocean of radiance. Mountains were pale as bone. Rivers shimmered like glass. Winds carried no shadow. Dreams had no place to hide. And in that brightness lived the spirits, beings made not of flesh, but of thought, memory, and the trembling voices of creation. They drifted like brushstrokes across the newborn world, leaving behind them echoes of music, sparks of wisdom, and the first small signs of emotion. But among all these spirits was one unlike the rest. His name was Yoru, the quiet stroke. Where others sang, Yoru listened. Where others shaped, Yoru observed. Where others created brilliance, Yoru longed for something different, something the world had never known. Darkness, not emptiness, not sorrow, not cold, but rest. A place where souls could breathe without burning beneath the relentless sun. A space where dreams could curl like ink across the mind. A gentle hush between heartbeats. Yet no spirit understood this longing. Why dim what shines? The spirits asked. Why invite what hides? And Yoru had no answer, only a yearning that ached like unspoken poetry. So Yoru wandered, quiet as ink before it touches silk. One evening, though day and night had yet to be named, Yoru found a pool of still water at the edge of creation. Its surface was mirror-perfect, untouched by wind or ripple. Yoru leaned in, curious, and for the first time the spirit glimpsed itself. A slender form woven of pale silver threads. Eyes like unfocused lantern light. Hands as delicate as waiting paper. Long, thin fingers aching to hold something. Something that did not yet exist. Then the pool shimmered, and from its depths rose a whisper. Create what you hunger for. The voice was soft, as if spoken from beneath a dream. Yoru stepped back, heart trembling with a new kind of courage. Quiet, tender, but unstoppable. The spirit reached toward its own reflection and found beneath the surface a long, slender object. A brush, carved from moonbone, bristles woven from the memory of silence. A handle smooth as an unwritten story. Yoru held it, and the world brightened further, as though fearing what might come. But Yoru smiled, a small secret smile, and lifted the brush. With one slow, careful stroke across the sky, Yoru painted something new. A shadow. It spread gently, like the wings of a resting bird, softening the harsh radiance above. The spirits gasped, some in fear, others in awe as the first veil of darkness began to unfurl. But this darkness did not devour. It soothed. The mountains, once exposed in relentless brilliance, now rested beneath a tender dim. Rivers shimmered softly, like whispers instead of shouts. The wind gained depth, tone, texture. the hint of a story waiting to be told. The world sighed, relieved, yet the spirits trembled. One, bright and sharp like lightning, confronted Yoru. "You bring an end to light." Yoru shook its head. "No," it whispered, voice like silk across water. "I bring balance. Without shadow, light is shallow. Without darkness, no dream can be born." But the spirit of lightning hissed, "You will swallow the world." Still Yoru continued. A second stroke deepened the sky. A third softened the horizons. A fourth gathered clouds like black velvet. The world dimmed not to gloom, but to beauty. The first dusk, birds newly born, stilled their wings, uncertain but curious. Creatures blinked and found comfort in the dim. Even the oceans seemed to hum, as though waking from a sleepless eternity. Then Yoru paused. What was missing? From the brush's tip dripped ink. But it was not ink at all. It was the essence of silence. The hush before a thought becomes a word. Yoru raised the brush once more and painted a single curve across the sky. Gentle, luminous, uncertain. Crescent, the first moon. It hung like a thin smile in the darkness, balancing shadow with silver. And the spirits, once fearful, stared upward with awe. Still the lightning spirit seethed. "You change what was perfect." Yoru answered softly, "Perfection is a cage. A world without rest cannot breathe." The brush shimmered. The world cooled. Shadows stretched like ink across stone. But with shadow came something new, something wild. Creatures began to dream. Some dreams were gentle, soft rivers of memory and hope. Some were restless, thick forests of instinct and hunger. Some were dark, deeper than shadow, older than the brush itself. And soon one dream moved. It slithered through the ink, waking with eyes like fire beneath water. The first nightmare, for with balance comes contrast. With beauty comes fear. With night comes mystery. Yoru watched it rise, not with horror, but with knowing sorrow. Darkness, once painted, could not be unmade. And this was only the beginning, the nightmare that woke beneath the brush. The first night had only just begun. Yoru stood beneath the moon they had painted, thin, silver, trembling like a half-remembered hope. The darkness wrapped around the world softly, like velvet pulled across a blazing flame. It was gentle, earned, needed, yet within that shadow something moved. It was not born of Yoru's will, not shaped by purpose or longing. It formed like an echo, the residue of fear untouched by light. A creature made of the unspoken. It slithered from the darkest stain of ink where the brush first touched the sky. His body coiled like smoke. Its head was the suggestion of a face, not fully born. Two eyes glowed like embers beneath deep water. It gazed at Yoru, and the world held its breath. The spirit of lightning, fierce, blinding, unyielding, stepped forward with a blade of brilliance stretching from its fingertips. "You have summoned ruin?" It hissed, voice crackling like thunder trapped inside glass. "You crafted a world where monsters can breathe." But Yoru shook softly, like paper beneath rain. No, they whispered. I created a world where dreams can breathe. The nightmare coiled, silent, unsure, like a child learning how to stand. It was not hunger, not malice, only curiosity shaped of shadow. His presence rippled across creation. The rivers dimmed into cool silver ribbons. Trees cast long, tender silhouettes. Creatures looked up, first shimmering with moonlight, and found comfort in the shade. Only one spirit did not rest. The lightning-born. It raised its brilliance high like a sword that could cut the night in half. Yoru felt the first tremor of conflict. Darkness is not the enemy, Yoru murmured. But lightning did not listen. It struck. A blinding arc ripped across the dim sky, tearing the darkness apart like cloth. Shadows fled. Stars flickered out. The nightmare shrieked, not in rage but in fear, as the world was flooded again with merciless light. Yoru stumbled to their knees. The moon they painted flickered, weakened by brilliance. Lightning stood triumphant. See how easily shadow breaks, it thundered. But beneath that voice the world cried. The trees wilted beneath the sudden blaze. No creature blinked, for blinking meant shadow. Sleep vanished like a forgotten word. The balance began to collapse. Yoru gripped the brush tighter, moonbone trembling in their hand like a heartbeat out of rhythm. They raised it again, not with rage, not with defiance, with love. A slow stroke across the heavens, deep and gentle, restored the first band of darkness. Lightning struck again, shattering it. Yoru repainted and the world exhaled. Stroke, shatter, stroke, shatter. Night and light collided like waves against stone, neither yielding. The nightmare watched silently, its form flickering like a dying flame. It was born of shadow. Lightning unmade it with every flash. At last Yoru stepped forward, voice trembling but steady. Lightning, they said softly, why do you fear what you do not understand? Lightning crackled in response. Light is truth. Light is purity. Darkness hides. Yoru lifted the brush, the reflection of the moon gleaming across its bristles like destiny. Darkness reveals what light blinds us from. Not all truths live in brightness. With a long breath, Yoru painted a curve so slow, so patient, that even lightning could not strike in time. A second moon, full, luminous, a pearl bathing the world in silver calm. Lightning froze, struck speechless by beauty. Darkness softened, no longer thick ink but a gradient, a canvas of possibility. Shadows curled like sleeping cats. Winds carried the scent of cool water and quiet soil. The first night was whole, not absence, but presence. Balance. Yet something new stirred. The nightmare, strengthened by the calm, rose higher. Its form grew teeth of starlight, wings like torn silk, voice like rustling pages. It drifted to Yoru, not with malice, but with longing. Speak, its presence whispered without words. Yoru understood. This creature, this dream born of shadow needed purpose, shape, direction, meaning. So Yoru knelt and touched its forehead with the tip of the brush. Ink and moonlight swirled together, dark and bright, and the nightmare shuddered, slowly changing. Its ember eyes softened, its shadow wings folded into elegant arcs. It became less hunger, more thought, the first dream given form, half night, half memory. Lightning recoiled. You shape monsters into children. Yoru turned, brush still aglow. I shape possibility. But the world trembled. For even as the dream softened, something else stirred beneath it. A second presence. Deeper, older, born not of fear but of envy. From the shadow beneath the dream, a darker shape crawled forth. No eyes, no voice, only endless hunger. Lightning stepped back. Even Yoru's breath faltered. This was not nightmare, not dream. This was void, the darkness that seeks to replace light rather than balance it. A hollow thing. It stretched long fingers toward the moon, and the world dimmed. Stars quivered. Trees turned to silhouettes of ash. Yoru raised the brush, but the void recoiled, hissing, for creation pained it. Lightning flared, but its brilliance only fed the void's hunger. Light made it stronger. Darkness made it bolder. Balance alone could tame it. Yoru knew this deeply, instinctively, like memory from a future yet unwritten. They dipped the brush into moonlight, then into shadow. Ink and silver merged like heartbeats. Yoru painted a single line across the sky, a thin stroke connecting moon to horizon. A boundary. Light and dark separated but did not sever. Each given space, each given breath. The void shrieked, denied domination, and fled beneath the mountains, sinking into the earth like regret. For now, the world exhaled again, tired, trembling, alive. Lightning stared, fury fading to something almost like respect. You created night, it whispered. Yoru lowered the brush, voice soft as snowfall. No, I created rest. The moon burned silver. Shadows flowed like ink in a calm river. The dream child curled beside Yoru, resting, small, safe. Night was not absence of light. Night was presence of peace. But beneath the mountains, hollow darkness waited, growing, learning, and soon it would rise again, not as shadow, not as dream, but as something terrifying and divine. The second night was coming, and nothing would remain untouched. The second night, and the first price of creation. Silence lay across the newborn night like a sleeping sea. Yoru stood beneath twin moons, one slender as a silver blade, the other full and calm as breath. Their light dripped down the mountains, pooled into rivers, wove itself through roots and wings and fur. The world finally rested gently, deeply, fully. But beneath that rest, something watched. The void, wounded yet whispering, curled deep underground like hunger learning patience. For the first time, darkness had form. For the first time, desire had shadow. And for the first time, creation waited for consequence. The dream child hovered beside Yoru like a flicker of ink-breathing moonlight. Its voice was a ripple, a tremor, a soft brushstroke through air. What am I? Yoru lowered themselves to the stone and touched its shifting form gently, like a painter smoothing wet pigment. You are possibility, they said. You are what night can become when guided by care, not fear. The dream shivered, shimmering like starlight beneath water. But lightning watched from above, eyes crackling with doubt and desire. You shape the world like a canvas, it murmured, voice softer than before. But every stroke leaves a mark. Every shadow hides a cost. Yoru knew. Balance is never free. That night, the second night, the world dreamed. The first dreams were simple. A bird imagined wind and woke with wings stronger. A wolf imagined the moon and howled not in fear, but belonging. A river imagined memory and flowed with ancient calm. But some dreams twisted, fractured, unraveled into longing. A tree dreamed of standing alone forever and woke with roots that strangled its kin. A stone dreamed of falling and shattered a sleeping mountain's silence. A small creature dreamed of teeth and woke hungry for more than food. Dreams were paint and paint could bleed. Yoru watched, heart trembling like brush bristles soaked too long in ink. The dream child flickered with unease. Am I to blame? No, Yoru whispered. You reflect the hearts of those who dream. But the world was young, and hearts were untested. Soon whispers slithered like wind beneath the mountainside. The void stirred, not with form but with influence. It did not rise. It seeped into roots, into soil, into sleeping minds. A new kind of dream was born, hollow, yearning for everything and nothing. The lightning spirit sensed it first, a tremor wrong and cold. Your night breeds secrets, it warned. Yoru did not deny it. And secrets are necessary. Light alone reveals too much, leaves nothing sacred. Lightning's voice dimmed, conflict softening into contemplation. What if the world does not deserve sacred things? Yoru looked to the moons. Then night must teach it how. But lessons have teeth. Far beneath them, a crack spread through the mountain like ink pulled too thin. From it seeped darkness not shaped by brush, but by hunger. The void had learned patience. It knew now light would strike if it rose too quickly. It knew shadow would resist if devoured too soon. So instead it listened, fed on dreams. On the tree that wished to stand alone, it whispered, "You should." On the stone longing to fall, it murmured, "Let go." On the creature aching for teeth, it breathed, "Take." The world shifted. Small imbalances, then larger. Predators stalked before hunger called. Rivers drowned forests without storm. Mountains crumbled though no wind blew. Night was peaceful, but beneath peace, threads frayed. The dream child saw this and shook like canvas tearing. Asterisk, I was born from shadow. Carry fault. Asterisk. Yoru held its fading form. You were born from possibility. Fault belongs to those who choose harm. But possibility is fragile. Lightning descended from the sky, no longer furious, but heavy with understanding. Yoru, it said quietly, you gave the world breath. You gave it rest. You gave it dreams. but you also gave it choices. Yoru met its gaze, silver against brilliant gold. And you gave it clarity, truth, awakening, two forces, two halves of a world not yet mature enough to carry them. Yoru lifted the brush. Lightning lifted its radiant blade, not to fight but to shape. Together, Yoru whispered, and for the first time lightning nodded. Together they painted the horizon, a line the world had never seen. Soft, vast, endless, stars, thousands, then millions, blooming like seeds flung into eternity. Night was no longer a single stroke. It was infinite detail, infinite story, infinite dream. The dream child rose, strengthened by belonging, and wrapped ink wings around the newborn stars like a guardian of sleep. But far below, the void saw the lights spread across its sky and trembled with hatred. For stars were creation's defiance. Stars were beauty the void could not swallow. And so it changed. It learned hunger is not enough. If it wished to devour night, it must first learn to shape it. The world above breathed, unaware of what dawned beneath. Yoru felt the tremor, a warning like a brush about to slip. The third night is coming, they murmured, and the void wishes to paint as well. The void learns the language of creation. The third night began not with darkness, but with silence. Not the gentle hush of sleep, not the calm between breaths. A deeper kind, a silence with weight, as though sound itself had stepped away. Yoru felt it first, like a brush trembling before the stroke. Lightning sensed it next, like thunder preparing to be born. Even the stars fluttered, dimming for a single heartbeat. Something beneath the world was waking. Not nightmare, not dream, purpose. Deep in the veins of the earth, the void coiled, no longer formless hunger. It remembered the brush in Yoru's hand. It remembered stars that pierced its shadow. And it understood. If darkness wished to survive, it must shape, not only swallow. So it reached where it was strongest, beneath thought, beneath bone, beneath memory. Into the sleeping minds of mortals. Dreams shifted. The bird who learned flight now dreamed of falling. The wolf who found belonging dreamed of solitude. Rivers dreamed of stillness until they ceased to flow. Not random destruction, deliberate unmaking. Lightning descended in a crack of pale gold, eyes hard as chiseled dawn. It learns, it warned. Yoru held the brush, moonlit bristles dimming with concern. Yes, they whispered. It paints without love. The dream child appeared, wings frayed like torn pages. Asterisk the dream's twist. Cannot hold them. Asterisk. Yoru knelt, touching its brow with trembling fingers. You were never meant to hold them alone. Lightning stepped forward, for the first time not as judge, but as partner. I can burn corruption. No, Yoru replied softly. Fire alone scorches truth with lie. They dipped the brush into the sky. Silver from one moon, shadow from the other. Lightning lifted its blade, half-folded, half-sheathing brilliance. Together they stepped into the dreaming world. They walked through forests made of thought. Trees grew from stories whispered by rivers. Stones remembered old wishes. Wind carried pieces of forgotten mornings. But tonight something corrupt moved through them like mold through damp paper. A stag stood before them, antlers dripping ink. Its eyes were hollow, as if the dream had been scooped out and replaced with hunger. Lightning raised its blade, but Yoru lifted a hand. Wait! They stepped toward the stag, slow, patient, like a brush approaching canvas. The void's whisper crawled through the creature's voice. Asterisk, there is no balance. Only want. Asterisk. Yoru touched the stag's brow with the brush. Gently, like forgiveness. Shadow peeled away like old paint. The creature blinked, once, and fell into peaceful sleep beneath a wash of silver light. Balance but fragile. The void hissed through the trees. Felt Yoru's stroke. It resented being undone. It would not remain quiet. Night bent, reality rippled like wet ink. The ground split with a slow, deliberate line, as if a giant unseen brush dragged itself across existence. From the crack, darkness rose. Not smoke, substance. Not hunger, intention. It stood tall as a mountain and thin as a question. A figure, humanoid, but unfinished. A shape made of shadow without edges. No eyes, only voids. No mouth, only silence that devoured sound around it. The first shade. Not born of dream. Not born of creation. Born of absence that learned to want. Lightning braced. Blade raised like dawn waiting to break. Yoru whispered only one word. Careful. The shade stepped forward, and the stars dimmed above its presence. Not because it swallowed light, but because light feared it. It spoke, though it had no voice. I will paint now. Yoru's heart faltered. Lightning's crackling voice sliced the air. You cannot create, only consume. But the shade lifted its hand, and in its palm, shadow condensed into a line. A brush. Not moonbone, gravebone. Not silence, void. A rival tool. The shade dragged the brush across the sky, and the world shuddered. A stain spread like rot across memory. Dreams curdled. Stars flickered like dying embers. For the first time since night was born, the world knew true dread. Yoru stepped forward, brush glowing silver ink like living moonlight. Lightning moved beside them. Blade a coiled storm on the edge of thunder. Two forces, creation and brightness, against a new artist of ruin. The shade tilted its head, curious, amused, endless. It raised its brush again, and night trembled, waiting to see whose stroke would define the sky. The fourth night had begun, not with rest, but with war. The war painted in the sky. The fourth night was not quiet. It began with a stroke, not from Yoru, nor from lightning, but from the shade. One line, drawn across the fabric of the heavens, like a wound across creation. The stars nearest it dimmed, pulled thin as memories stretched too far. Dreams scattered like embers in a cold wind. Even the moons flickered, pale and shivering. Lightning surged forward in a burst of brilliance. Enough! The blade struck like dawn breaking in half, a crackling arc of pure radiance splitting the darkness. Thunder roared across the sky, scattering shadow like torn silk. But the shade did not fall. It absorbed the strike, like paint soaking into canvas. Lightning staggered, stunned. The shade's voice was like a whisper written in frost. I do not break. Yoru stepped forward, brush gleaming with moon ink. And you do not create beauty. One stroke, silver, soft, alive, swept across the sky. The wound the shade carved healed like breath returning to a drowning world. Stars blinked awake. Dreams steadied. The shade tilted its featureless face. Intrigued, not afraid. Then the battle began. Lightning descended like a falling sun. Yoru rose like a stroke of night wind. The shade countered like gravity in reverse. Every clash was paint. Lightning slashed brightness across the sky. Radiant blades carving white splinters of dawn. Yoru swept arcs of night, graceful, deliberate, layering shadow like ink over parchment. The shade erased, not slashing, but unmaking, wiping existence like pigment from stone. The heavens became a canvas of war, white for lightning, black for shadow, silver for balance. They collided with such force that stars wept meteors, streaks of fire trailing across dream and memory. The first meteor shower. Mortals looked up in awe and terror. Some prayed. Some slept beneath falling light. Some followed the meteors like omens written in flame. The sky was no longer peaceful. It was alive and afraid. The dream child circled overhead, wings trembling with each clash. Balance breaks, it whispered. The canvas tears. Yoru felt the truth like splintered bone. Every stroke of lightning pierced too deep. Every arc of shadow smothered life. Every erasure from the shade unmade something irreplaceable. Rivers, memories, names. Creation bled. Lightning met Yoru's eyes mid-battle. Golden fire and moon ink locking like fate. When this ends, Lightning said quietly, either night or light must fall. Yoru's heart cracked like wet pigment drying too fast. No, both must live, or neither will mean anything. Lightning hesitated, for the first time uncertain. The shade saw that hesitation, and struck. Shadow unfurled like wings of void. A needle-thin line carved toward Lightning's heart. A stroke meant to erase existence. Yoru moved before thought. They leapt, brush first, silver ink striking shadow head-on. Flash. A scream silent. Inside the soul. The blow stopped, but at cost. The moonbone brush splintered. A crack ran down the handle, hairline but deadly as destiny. Lightning caught Yoru as they fell back through the painted air. You cannot keep shielding me? Lightning whispered. Yoru looked up, pain bright as starlight. And you cannot face this alone. For a moment, just one, they stood together. Silver light and brilliant white, side by side. The shade watched, and for the first time it trembled. Not in fear but in awareness. It understood something new. They were strongest together. So it chose to separate them. The shade thrust its brush into the sky. Not a line this time, a tear. The heavens split open like fabric pulled apart. Silver bled one way, white the other. Shadow poured into the gap like ocean through a broken dam. Yoru and lightning were ripped from each other like two halves of a single thought. One thrown into deep night, one hurled into blinding day. The world broke into two skies, a realm of endless sun, burning, sleepless, raw. A realm of endless night, beautiful, fearful, dream-filled. Balance shattered. Creatures cried in confusion, some trapped in perpetual day, others in endless shadow. Rivers dried in light, froze in dark. Mountains cracked in two. Yoru awoke in the realm of night, brush flickering weakly in hand. Lightning burned far above on the side of eternal day, unable to reach them. The dream child curled beside Yoru, dim and wounded. To restore balance, it whispered, "You must give night something light cannot steal." Yoru closed their eyes. A stroke formed in their mind, the boldest they had ever dared imagine. Not shadow, not silver, both woven into one. A gift, a symbol, a guide for dreamers lost in dark or light. Yoru lifted the cracked brush. Ink and moonlight swirled like souls entwining. The fifth night would be their creation, or their end. Two skies lay split like a broken memory. One of endless day, a horizon of burning white where no shadow could breathe. One of endless night, deep, dream-laden, yet fragile as wet ink. Between them stretched the wound the shade carved. A tear across creation, a rift where stars bled and time shivered. Yoru stood beneath eternal night, brush cracked like bone that remembered pain. Lightning burned beyond reach, trapped in a realm of sleepless brilliance. And the shade, patient now, waited in the tear between worlds. It held its grave bone brush with reverence, watching creation unravel thread by thread. Not with hatred, with hunger for definition. It wanted meaning. It wanted purpose. It wanted what Yoru had, the ability not just to end, but to shape. The dream child lay weak at Yoru's feet, wings limp like pages too drenched in ink to fly. The balance falls, it whispered, voice thin as starlight fading at dawn. Yoru knelt, touching its brow with trembling fingers. I cannot mend two skies alone. The child shakily pointed upward, toward the fracture between worlds. Then do not mend alone. The answer was simple as breath, beautiful as fear. Yoru looked toward the realm of day, eyes narrowed against searing brilliance. Lightning saw them through the veil of white, brilliance flickering like thunder longing for storm. Neither could cross, not with force, but perhaps with art. Yoru lifted the broken brush. Lightning raised its blade of dawn. Two gestures, one intention. The shade moved first. It carved a circle through the wound, a void halo like an eclipsed sun. Shadow spiraled outward, devouring the torn edges of sky like ink soaking through old parchment. Day dimmed. Night thickened. The rift widened with hunger. Lightning struck, pure radiance splitting reality like a scream of light. Yoru swept their brush, silver shadow arcs restoring dream to the bleeding dark. For a moment, just one, both strokes met in the center of the sky. Light, shadow, ink, brilliance, and neither shattered. They formed something new, a fusion neither alone could shape. The shade recoiled, trembling as if stabbed by awe. It saw a new color bleed across the rift. Not white, not black, but twilight. The first dusk, the first dawn, a horizon where day met night and neither consumed the other. Balance reborn but unfinished. They must complete the stroke. Together, Yoru reached across the rift, hand outstretched, brush flickering with moon ink like a heartbeat's last hope. Lightning reached back, blade dimming into gentle radiance, not to strike, but to touch. When their hands met, the world breathed. Ink surged. Light bloomed. Two powers merged, not in war, but in creation. The broken brush mended in Yoru's palm, cracks sealing like wounds forgiven. Lightning's blade softened into a single shining thread of dawn. Together they painted across the sky, a single curve, bold, infinite, alive, the horizon, a place where dreams and truth could meet, where night flowed into day, where day rested into night, where sleep and awakening shared breath. The shade watched in silence, still holding its grave-bone brush, trembling with understanding it never knew it craved. Creation was not ownership. Creation was sharing. Yoru turned to the shade, not with threat, but invitation. Paint with us. Lightning nodded for the first time without doubt. The shade hesitated, then lowered its brush. It drew a circle around the horizon stroke, slow, reverent, full of wonder. Darkness flowed into dawn. Dawn glowed into night. Day and night spun into rhythm. Pulse, wave, heartbeat. Eclipse. The first. Not war. Union. The sky sealed whole. Not bright, not dark, but alive. Day breathed. Night rested. Morning and evening were born. Creatures opened eyes to golden shadow. Dreamers woke with silver memory. Stars learned to wait instead of weep. The shade, no longer void, but artist of shadow, bowed its head to Yoru. Not defeated, transformed. The dream child rose strong once more, wings spanning starlight like ink unfolding into story. Lightning sheathed its brilliance, radiant but gentle. Yoru stood beneath the sky they all painted, a sky that knew sleep and waking, dream and truth, shadow and light. Night was no longer absence. Night was art, and the world finally could dream in peace. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth. May your dreams be ink and silver. May your waking be dawn and shadow. May the night always paint softly around you.